Beastie and FeAge versus MarineLorD and Elyona, the French team. We're opening the series with Dry River, as we do have a non-mirror matchup. Ottomans and Delhi will be in the hands of Beastie and FeAge, and MarineLorD and Elyona will have the Delhi and the Mongols.
Yeah, you made a nickname for Beastie and FeAge. I was hoping you did one for MarineLorD and Elyona because I didn't know how you were going to craft that one. But in Dry River, this is very interesting because we see usually Delhi on both sides from the games that we saw yesterday and from the past series. We see Delhi at both, but this is the very first true non-mirror. 4 different civilizations going to be heading into this one.
And in we go. Welcome, folks, to the second semifinals of the EGC TV Afreeca duos. It is Beastie and FeAge with the red and purple colors. They will be in command of the Chinese and the Ottomans to the north. And to the south, it is MarineLorD and Elyona with the Mongols and Delhi in the cold colors. It's a best of 5 that we are having over here, with the neutral map being Dry River. And as you know, on this map, we will have an increased emphasis put on those spawns. You can already see those colored dots moving out towards the middle.
Yeah, it's super important to get a little bit of this map control in the beginning, especially in Dark Age. Now, MarineLorD with the Mongols. Oh my goodness, Lidakor, take a look at this. There are 2 docks on the very same pond. We're going to see some huge action as we hit the second minute.
You already have a tower coming up there as well. FeAge is going to play into the Ottoman spearman with the military school. On the other side, it would not be unprecedented to see a Mongol spearman coming out from MarineLorD. He is yet to start queuing any of them, though, and look at that. It's a barracks coming out as well from FeAge. We have seen this. In fact, one of the games I recall featuring this type of an approach was a Hillendale 1v1 I've cast like a week ago. We had the Ottoman player doubling down on the spears and just completely shutting down a Malian player's gold economy. Here, it's going to be about matching those Mongol numbers, possibly even out-muscling them in the long run.
Yeah, and I think going for the barracks in the military school is a really good option, because with the Mongols being able to get those spearmen out 2 at a time, the military school, just isn't going to keep up. They need to do a lot of studies before coming out to be spearmen, so it takes a little bit more time for them to be able to. Now, Beastie, playing to the strength of the Chinese, puts an outpost right next to his dock, just making sure they get preserved. And it almost looks like, as we're seeing this, both of these docks just making fishing boats on either side. It's almost like they agreed to a little bit of a ceasefire.
Yeah, everybody's just chilling on that pond. Don't forget, folks, Delhi fishing boats can fire arrows, so they can try to swing battles with that. But given that there's a Chinese tower nearby, it's going to be so difficult for Elyona to use that. When that tower is garrisoned, it's going to do a lot of damage to combat ships, or even fishing ships, actually. So you need to be very cautious with the micro if you're Elyona. And you see, that's the reason why FeAge plays into the barracks and the military school. He has 3 spearmen out there, MarineLorD has 4. It's much easier, as you mentioned, for him to keep up with the production of the Mongols, especially at the early stage of Dark Age.
Yeah, I mean, without just the barracks, it would be quite the issue. You do need to keep up. And one of the nice things for FeAge, as he is sending his scout and a couple of his spearmen to try to burn down this dock, they already have a defensive structure right next to them, right? They're going to be able to garrison in that outpost if they're able to. That Delhi fishing boat is going to start to fire a couple arrows, but FeAge with some very good micro, going to be trying to pull the spearman back, going to be trying to perhaps dodge some of these arrows if he has the ability to. But MarineLorD with his Mongolian spearmen and his Khan do have different plans, and it looks like they're going right to the Ottoman side of the base, trying to cut off reinforcements. Now, there is a military advantage in terms of Beastie and FeAge. FeAge going in 2 different areas. He's trying to get this dock down, while he's also trying to preserve his spearman count back home. What do you think of MarineLorD's choice to try to go up north and take down some reinforcements before coming down south?
I love it, especially because he might not have scouted the barracks, so he maybe wasn't anticipating that many spearmen to be there. If he moves up there, only sees 1 or 2 spears, he could have easily killed or done a lot more damage to them. He just tried to intercept the reinforcements, and with that, he preserves the dock of his teammate. The key thing here is that these spearmen haven't arrived for FeAge, so this dock stays up. It might stay up long enough for the Delhi player to get the Feudal even, get a combat ship out, although that seems more and more unlikely with those villagers also being conscripted to throw torches. But right now, the army of MarineLorD is doing a great job shielding the teammate's dock from the enemy spearmen.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can tell for how many fishing boats that Beastie has, he is being the winner of that pond. I mean, there's about 7 fishing boats over here. Delhi just has 1, only firing a singular arrow at a time. One of the things you got to think about with the outpost, not only is it going to do some damage to that fishing boat, but there will be a time later in the game in Feudal Age when Beastie does get there where he can do things like put hand cannon slits on it, being the Chinese. So it'll give him that extra little bit of range. Now that dock from Elyona is starting to burn. It is starting to go down. He's really hoping that his teammate gets to Feudal Age very quickly, and he does just now, going up with the deer stones. So hopefully he's able to provide a little bit of help for his teammate as he's trying to establish a little bit on the dock. He does have that second pond, as you can see, with 3 or 4 fishing boats in that area, but Beastie already extending as well, going for multiple ponds. That one's pretty much null and void for Elyona. Now, Elyona in Feudal Age is going to be going up with the Tower of Victory to try to help himself out. The problem is his food economy just isn't there.
Yeah, that's going to be a source of concern for him, especially with Feudal Age coming in as well for FeAge. If he gets Feudal, he is going to have the hardened upgrade on the spears, like MarineLorD does. And in that case, we could easily see him doubling down even more on the spears. You see a Meteor is already out there for FeAge. That is going to swing the battle in his favor, and it will allow him to torch down those docks. For the time being, Beastie's dock is stopped over here, and FeAge will commit to just defending it. But he could also commit to destroying that dock that we have from Elyona to the north.
Yeah, and I think if he wants to, he would have the ability to do that. There's a decent amount of fishing boats up there, but it looks like they're just playing Ring Around the Rosie upon this pond. They're trying to get that one villager. MarineLorD's Khan can finally fire and move at the same time, so that Chinese villager is going to end up going down. And it looks like for MarineLorD, he's trying to get his spearmen to try to pick apart particular spearmen from FeAge, and he's trying to do the best he can in terms of micro. The issue is the amount that he has. He has 1 badly damaged spearman. You can see the hardened spearman upgrade just came in as they're starting to move east, but he just, even though he has that upgrade, he just doesn't have the numbers, and he's got to back up.
There's a boar nearby as well. That can be a game changer in these early skirmishes when you have just a couple of units out there. Boar gets triggered, it can easily massacre some spears. You see, now the Meteor is going to be buffing those spears. This will repel MarineLorD and will secure this dock spot for Beastie. Beastie isn't playing into any army, by the way. He's just big chilling, he's big fishing. And they do have an eco lead of 7 already, and this could increase even more if that dock from Elyona goes down.
Yeah, I mean, Beastie's food economy was pretty much untouched. You could see all of those ponds. You can see how much it's doing now. Elyona trying to get an archer ship to protect the solitary dock that he has. And usually with these archer ships, they might not do much in the way of damage, but it is going to preserve that only dock. So really good strategy from him to try to use an arrow ship. Elyona transitioning a little bit into archers. He did go with the Tower of Victory, so those archers are quite quick. And even though they don't necessarily have the spearman numbers from MarineLorD, the fact that he has archers behind him is going to make FeAge back up for the first time. And even though you saw a military count that was increased for the side of Beastie, and FeAge is going to go more so in the way of MarineLorD and Elyona. MarineLorD trying to get some raids as well. Took down a couple FeAge units. The Ottomans probably a little bit easier to raid in that regard just because all of their military is up front, right? So he had a couple Keshiks taken down a raid. FeAge has to take his units and back up. And take a look at Beastie's base as well. There were 3 archery ranges there. Probably going to see some units out of him soon too, and that would really help because FeAge is 2v1ing.
That's a big thing, as you mentioned. Beastie can just play into a full boom, but he's not going to boom into very late game over here. He is playing for the Chukanu, and it's lovely to see that. He's got a great early food economy with the fish, but this fish is finite. He needs to use this quickly. And that's exactly what he's doing. He's getting some Chukanus going. For the time being, his teammate FeAge will be repelled by these archers, and of course, a couple of Kishi coming out from MarineLorD as well to support that. But we know how capable Chukonu are in large numbers, and Beastie is working towards that very quickly.
Yeah, and I think it's about how many archery ranges he has. When you took a look back in the base when Vodka did, he has 5 archery ranges pumping out. So we're going to see a big military mass of Chuganu, and they can take down, even though those Keshiks are heavily armored units. Well, you have enough Zugnu, you will be able to take them down. Those Keshiks now, in the meantime, they are getting some lifesteal. Big demo ship actually just takes down about 2 or 3 spearmen. The Keshiks pretty much remained untouched. It just shows the mobility and how important those Keshiks are in trying to torch down docks and getting rid of things. A lot of fishing boats going down, Lidakor. It might mean not as many Zugnu as we get into the big stages of these fights.
Clock is ticking indeed, and you see the Kashyyyk do take a good engagement over here, but here come the Sipahi, and they do a lot of damage over here as long as they're buffed by the Matter. Numbers are looking better for MarineLorD and Elyona though on the screen, and indeed Beastie and FeAge will just fall back. Ships are also helping from the shoreline though, and it makes it much more difficult for MarineLorD and Elyona to engage.
Yeah, those arrow ships doing a pretty good job of AoE damage for those arrows, having the ability to fire in a spray-like fashion instead of just solitary, making sure a lot of archers get damaged. Now, these are Tower of Victory archers, so they do fire a little faster. But in your opinion, if you have Tower of Victory Delhi archers against Chinese Zugnu, who are you taking?
Depends a lot on that Chukonu mass. The Chukonu is a unit that struggles a lot when it's alone, but it's very easy to mass produce them. When you have 100 of them, I will take them over anything in Feudal Age. But when it's only 29 and you're facing 30 plus Tower of Victory archers, it's the archers all day. It's a matter of how long Beastie has until he has to take this fight. How much time does he have to build up his numbers? I think with how the game is shaping out to be, he might have a window to get to like 50 or 60, and this force can become intimidating.
Yeah, and it can depend on his teammate too and what he makes. I saw FeAge making Sipahi. It looks like an arrow ship from Beastie. That light junk ends up going down just because of how many archers there are. Both sides are losing a lot of their food production in the way of these fishing boats. Beastie trying to salvage some of the fishing boats he has, make some more arrow ships, but you see those pluses on top of those Keshiks. It just means that they're healing with every torch they throw. A little bit of a Sipahi raid on the south side from FeAge, trying to get there. Not necessarily going to get much in the way of villagers, but MarineLorD and Elyona, by the way they're able to take down this dock, the way they're able to put their forces together, those fishing boats go down, that junk goes down. That's a lot of wasted resources on that pond.
Eco numbers looking very close over here. Army numbers are relatively close as well, but the Sipahi, they do have that buff from the Matter. Will help them just circle around, look for these open, exposed villagers, and that's exactly what FeAge has been doing. And this is supplementing Beastie's strategies so well. They need to pursue the Sipahi. MarineLorD and Elyona does have to. And this buys time for Beastie to build up those Chukonu numbers. He's up to 50 of them now. And we are reaching a critical mass where he can just flood the map with Chukonu. We're reaching that critical mass where the Lancers, the Kashyyyk, will just disappear. And all that will stand in the way of those Chukonu will be those TOV archers. But you gotta be cautious with them. Those boys do pack a punch.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And you're right, those Zugnu numbers are getting a little bit high and a little bit too out of range. You see how many that he has in the queue. Beastie has 6 in the queue. He's continuing to use all of those archery ranges that he has. MarineLorD trying to stop him from doing so and getting a little bit of a raid right next to that Barbican. These Keshiks are really doing a good job of not only picking off villagers, but just staying alive in the process. Getting that +3 health is really, really important. Now, Beastie does have a big mass. Lidakor, he's getting aggressive. He's trying to take him to Ram Ranch.
Yeah, he's getting to that critical mass, and I'm starting to love this. When you commit to this many Chukonus, you cannot stop. You cannot just say, okay, I have 50, I'm going Castle Age. This massive Chukonu gets kind of worse as the game goes on. Once you have Mangonels available, they will start struggling a lot. He needs to push this in Feudal Age, and that's exactly what he's doing. Although, as Vodka is pointing out, it looks like we might have Castle Age behind this, but I would be shocked if he just fell back before trading this army to shield his Castle Age.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how he's able to go, like, stockpile resources and go up to Castle Age while making as many Zug Nu. That Ram not doing much in the way of effectiveness. Only one Ram with DPS isn't really that helpful. Sapahi going to be trying to go in on those archers. That is a lot of dead archers in the process. Zug Nu trying to take down some of the front line of MarineLorD. There are a decent amount of Keshiks up there. He's got 17 total on the battlefield. One of these things that we're showing out of the Zug Nu is their mobility. It takes them a while to actually start running away. He goes between two pawns, so he has an arrow ship helping him out. Sapahi trying to create that front line. Going up against just Keshiks, though, just because they're a light cavalry up against heavy cavalry could prove to be an issue. But Beastie, just because of how many Zug Nu he has, he is holding his own, and it feels like it's just a delay strategy because Astronomical Clock Tower is going up.
The key thing here is how quickly you can get rid of that front line over there. The Chukonu will just eat the Kashik in a blink of an eye, and that leaves the Sipahi open to just jump on the archers. Look at the other side though. You do have the Meter with the defense buff, makes it much more difficult for the archers to take down the Sipahi. And that's the big difference between the two teams right now. And of course the fact that, as you said, Beastie is now up to Castle Age, and because there is no other player in Castle, this is still perfectly fine. In fact, it's better than what it was 2 minutes ago. If this gets into Castle Age with all players being there, it's gonna get challenging for Beastie to use these Chukonu against Mangonels. But right now, he's got the Castle Age decks in, and this is the window for him to push.
Yeah, and pushing is exactly what he's doing. The Sapahi just trying to be bodyguards with him. Elyona trying to go up with Compound of the Defender at the same time. But look at how quickly, just like you alluded to, the veteran Zug Nu just rip through Keshiks. That range defense arrow, or that range defense drum, I should say, the key that the Meter is beating in, being so important, though Sapahi really staying alive. Frontline gets evaporated. Khan goes down. That's probably a GG in chat. While as Beastie with that Zug Nu mass pretty much untouched, he sees the Compound of the Defender. It's gonna go up, but he's gonna lose a lot of villagers.
There's a big difference here. Beastie has his Castle Age upgrades. They'll take a long time to get those, and this time will not be given to Elyona. The Compound of the Defender is up. Beastie knows he needs to take this fight right now, and he's going to trade a Castle Age army to a Feudal Age army in a very efficient fashion. This army is going to disappear from Elyona, and he's going to be sitting there in Castle Age with not a single military unit on the field.
Yeah, look at Beastie going in line formation like that. This is really just target practice, and I know I use that analogy pretty frequently, but this one, I mean, look at how many archers are down. That's enough for them to call it. The military count on the top part of your screen right before it disappeared, it was 84-2. MarineLorD could not take it anymore. The archers were dead. Elyona couldn't take it anymore. They're like, let's just go to game 2. I'm done with this one.
What a game by Beastie and FeAge, of course. FeAge played a very standard Ottoman player over here. He did a great job, though, protecting the docks of Beastie. And Beastie just used that food eco he got from the docks to escalate into a Chukonu flood. He loves that unit, and we've seen why. When you get to that critical mass, especially when you have an age advantage as well, you can punish very quickly. And that's exactly what we have seen from Beastie and FeAge. They are going to play Rocky Canyon on game number 2. Interestingly, MarineLorD and Elyona opted to go for the opponent's home map over here in game number 2, as they will have the French and Ottomans facing off against Malians and French coming from Beastie.
Man, this is a pretty interesting matchup with both French on either side of the Rocky Canyon. We know that this map is a little bit open, so we're probably, obviously, with French on both sides, we're going to see a lot of Royal Knights. Hopefully we see a lot of raiding, and we're probably going to be all over the map. Lidakor, let's hit him with it.
Jumping into game number 2, Beastie and FeAge do have a lead of 1 point as we head to Rocky Canyon. This was the home map of Beastie and FeAge, but MarineLorD and Elyona opted to play this one for game number 2. They are playing with the Ottomans and the French in blue and teal, and on the other side, who else but Beastie would have the Malians under his control with red, and he's going to be playing together with FeAge, who has the French.
Yeah, this game turned into something very Ilalu that we're going to see in game 2. It looks like he's going to be trying to get up to Feudal Age. Obviously, now taking a look at MarineLorD's side, I didn't see a military school over there when we took a look. That was a barracks, and he's going to be pumping out spearmen a little bit quicker than usual, and you can see where he's going. Initially, he started to go in the area of the northwest side trying to get rid of Beastie, but when you, in your perspective, if you're the Ottomans, you see those spearmen, you got to think your French is a target, right?
Absolutely. This is the same concept that we discussed in the previous semifinals. You have the 2 French players and 2 players kind of supporting them. The French will want to play with knights, and if you have a civilization that can slow down the opponent's French player when it comes to reaching knights, that is immensely valuable. The added bonus here is that even if you cannot harass the gold mine of FeAge here, if you're MarineLorD, you can at least start torching houses from Beastie. So no matter what happens, these spearmen will find value, and this is why this is such a good investment for MarineLorD.
Yeah, I can definitely agree. I like how you alluded to FeAge's gold mine because it is pretty far back. It would be difficult for those spearmen to actually get there. Whereas Beastie's gold, the map generation, not as kind to him. You can see that pit mine and those houses around that are very ripe for the taking, and a couple spearmen will go that way. And what's really nice about making spearmen is the fact that if FeAge does go to Feudal Age pretty much unscathed, he goes up with the School of Cavalry, and he's going to want to make cavalry units. So that pit mine, even though it's about 80 to 75%, it might end up going down.
It's tricky, right? You don't want to commit that knight against those spears, as we do have Beastie coming up with the Saharan trade network. Now, he's going to place this right next to his pit mine, and folks, this doesn't mean that he wants to trade. This is more like just a defensive tower over here from Beastie. Early in the Malian meta, we have seen this a lot, just protecting your gold mine with the trade network. But at this point, it seems like he is going to lose the pit mine potentially before the landmark goes up.
Yeah, I think it could be a photo finish. It's really nice that you alluded to it being a defensive structure. I mean, it's a 5,000 HP outpost, essentially, that can house a decent amount of villagers as well. So if that pit mine does go down, he'll be able to rebuild it. But again, that's wood that he would rather spend on doing something else. Now, those spearmen are starting to get a little feisty. They're moving a little bit north. I think he saw that Beastie's villagers were going to be trying to repair that pit mine instead of building the trade network. But you're absolutely right. This pit mine is going to end up going down. On the other side, FeAge's School of Cavalry is not completed yet. Help is not coming soon.
Yeah, Spearman can also torch a couple of houses over there, maybe try to light one on fire before the tower completes. And this is going to be big. Beastie is going to have to reinvest into that one pit mine that he has lost. But I guess the silver lining for him is that he didn't lose any of the houses, so those won't have to be rebuilt. And they've both reached Feudal Age without major damage done to them.
Yeah, that is kind of the silver lining for him. And now with that trade network going up, he will be able to do that. Rather spend the wood on a stable, I would imagine, as a Malian player in Feudal Age doing something like Warrior Scouts might not be a bad idea. Now, MarineLorD, just because he invested into that barracks and made the spearmen that he does, he has 5 total, and you can see them wandering around the map looking for an area against the French that he might be able to do some raids to. This is a really good presence of mind from MarineLorD Lidakor. He knows that the Saharan trade network got completed. There's really not much he can do about it. He targets the French instead, and he might be able to get a villager, but FeAge going to be able to pull them to the south. But again, we talk about with the French, you get rid of that gold economy, it just means less knights later.
Yeah, you cut off the gold mining, and it's not just the fact that, you know, you're killing villagers or whatsoever. Not even the idling villagers part. It's plain and simple slowing down the opponent's gold income, especially at the beginning of Feudal Age. That's immensely valuable because you do have very high gold cost on those knights. And you see right now there is not a single knight in queue for FeAge. Elyona does have 2 knights just like his counterpart, but he's got 1 more in queue. In the next few minutes, if FeAge isn't able to get some knights on the field, the knight numbers will be favoring very heavily. At least it will be favoring Elyona very heavily. Now, to compensate for this, Beastie is also doing some harassment with warrior scouts on the opponent's gold mine, and that's also going to slow down production for the other French player.
Yeah, it definitely will. And he actually lost a scout in the process. MarineLorD did, just trying to make sure his spearmen end up staying alive. Now, these aren't the warrior scouts of old that are necessarily totally OP and broken, but those warrior scouts can do a decent amount to spearmen alike. And now FeAge having an excellent raid on Elyona. There is a lot of idle time. That's about 9 or 10 villagers. One of them ends up going down. It looks like a second one might go down in the process, but these villagers, they have no idea where to go. They have empty baskets. They're just trying to get some berries. They're just trying to live their life, but FeAge coming in with some really crucial raids. This is a game of raids, Lidakor. It's happening everywhere.
This is such a clever move from Beastie to play into just a handful of warrior scouts. Even when he had just one scout on the field, he has gotten the warrior scout's tech, and it showed that one scout was there to harass. And you see, he's not fully committing to the warrior scouts, he is also playing archers. But he realizes that in this game, where MarineLorD is having a very slow army with the spearmen only available, if both players go cavalry, they can do a lot of raiding. You cannot fully commit to the cavalry because then you just get overrun by spears. But Beastie can afford to play into a couple of warrior scouts, supplement the harassment that FeAge is doing, while also building up his archer mass.
Yeah, building up the archer mass, he certainly is. Right now, he's got about 4, and he's using them to protect FeAge's back gold mine, because the one raiding unit that MarineLorD was actually using was spearmen. Not necessarily a raiding unit, but pretty good against the French when they only want to make cavalry. Right, so having just a couple archers is really going to help him out. He's continuing to produce in the warrior scout regard also, and just because he has that many warrior scouts, he has 7 precisely. You're going to see some professional scouts, and that's exactly what we see. And Beastie taking some forward deer and just trying to go ahead and yoink some of those food resources that both the Ottomans and the French do need going forward. Again, this could mean that the snowball for FeAge is going to pack a little bit better. Have you seen with some of these professional scouts and him getting the deer dropping off on the French side instead of the Malian side?
Yeah, I love this a lot. I would actually love to pick Beastie's brain on whether this is the question of the chicken or the egg being first. Did he get professional scouts because he was so successful harassing and he made a couple of warrior scouts anyways, as we do have a raid over here with a couple of knights? So did he get professional scouts because he already had quite a few scouts out there that he used for harassment? Or was the plan right from the get-go to go professional scouts, but before he gets the tech, he uses them for harassment? I think it's the second case. Pro scouts was probably the plan from the get-go. But it's lovely to see how he didn't just chill back at home as both knights go down here. He didn't just chill back at home with the scouts. He used them for aggression before he has gotten the tech.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things that if you're maybe a lower elo player, that's something that you can really learn from Beastie, because if he did use those for professional scouts, while he's getting that technology, they got to do something. They're not just going to stand there and wait by deer piles. So he got aggressive with them, and he was able to get some damage on the side of MarineLorD. And because of that, even so, with FeAge having those row knights as well, the map control for Beastie and FeAge is massive, to the point where they're able to take a lot of those deer. And you can see there's 2 separate sets of professional scouts. There was one on the west side and one on the east, trying to take down deer. So he is picking them up, moving them to the base at a rather lightning pace. And now MarineLorD just trying to get a little bit aggressive as well. He does have a decent amount of spearmen. He does have about 4 archers or so, looking to try to find some villagers from FeAge. He's not necessarily going to be able to raid the food just because of the deer that's coming in from the professional scouts, but maybe somewhere around that gold, maybe somewhere around that wood. Honestly, if I'm the team of MarineLorD and Elyona Lidakor, I would be pretty frustrated, because the French player is the one that you're supposed to raid. It just seems like they're not doing it that well, or they can't.
Yeah, look at what Beastie's turning those deer carcasses into. He's going into Castle Age. There are so many layers to this game, Tim. When you look back at this, as you said, how Beastie maximized the use of those warrior scouts right from the beginning. The confidence that he had, saying, look, I am willing to poke around spearmen with my warrior scouts, even if I have to use them for ferrying in carcasses later, because I'm so confident that I won't lose them. I won't mismicro them. That's maximum level confidence from Beastie. And now he's playing into the maximum effect of professional scouts. As you said, he's got 2 groups of scouts, and he's taking all the food away. This will make life so much more difficult for the opposing French player.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just, even though I talked about FeAge not being rated in the food department, you're absolutely right. Because Elyona, as a French player, when you hear the word farm transition, you kind of get scared a little bit. You don't want to do those things, but it might force Elyona to do that a little bit quickly. Now, military count for Elyona and MarineLorD, it is favorable for them. It's 53-30, so maybe they're looking to take a fight. Beastie with the Farimba garrison. We'll see what he's actually going to make out of the garrison, because he's going to need a decent amount of units to try to combat the feudal aggression from MarineLorD and Elyona. Only has about 4 archers here. FeAge did a good job of getting outposts in this regard, trying to save some of his villagers, but it looks like he's kind of caught a little bit. There's 25 villagers that I can count from the starting town center, and those outposts that are idle. These 5 are going to go down. They're trying to use that military count to get some sort of economic advantage, and right now it's really paying off for them.
MarineLorD is starting to build up that power ball of the feudal age aggression from the Ottomans. And when you look at the overall military distribution, it's looking grim for Beastie and FeAge. Beastie does have a lot of those warrior scouts. Those will be useful for ferrying in carcasses. But we've talked about this. When most of your army is cavalry, you will struggle against spears. Beastie needs some time to build up his archer numbers before they can take this fight. And that's a window that Elyona and MarineLorD can exploit. Beastie's up to 19 scouts now, or 19 archers actually. So I think he's getting closer. But there is still a window here in which MarineLorD and Elyona can punish.
Yeah, and I think it depends on how much damage they're actually able to do in that window. As we can see, that window is wide open. The hatches are not battened for Beastie and FeAge. That archer count still trying to get up there, as you alluded to as well. They're doing that split that we see as well. Those archers kind of caught out. These are the archers that he really needs in this fight. They end up getting caught out. Elyona being able to take a couple down. He has a lot of knights to make the front line. FeAge not so much in that department. He has 11 knights, 12 knight just popped out. But the reason why he didn't take that battle is because a lot of them were at low health. And the reason why when they were at low health like that, they're going to end up going down very quickly. With Elyona's knights having chivalry, they're able to get healed just a little bit and probably getting to full health eventually. Lidakor, this is the making of a death ball that I'm not sure if anybody can recover from.
Beastie is going to need poison arrows here, period. When you look at the knight numbers, those are almost double for Elyona compared to his counterpart, FeAge. You need something that breaks the armor of those knights, and poison arrows archers do that very well. It looks like Beastie is also playing into the Castle Age tech on the warrior scouts, but poison arrows is yet to be obtained, and without that, it's going to be challenging to take down all these knights. I think if they have enough numbers, they might be able to, but they're outnumbered 2-1. I think you need that game changer, that tool to increase your firepower if you're Beastie, especially against those heavily armored knights.
Yeah, and using that archer mass, like you said, it's going to take a little bit of time, and based on where MarineLorD and Elyona are parking their units, it's going to make it very difficult for the archer mass to actually get to FeAge, who is under duress. MarineLorD with such impeccable micro right now, even though Beastie has him outclassed in age. I think for unit composition, you're absolutely right, is a little bit better. The spearmen doing a great job in that little engagement, just making sure FeAge's knights doesn't get a charge on those Ottoman archers. Elyona's knight count is getting to a scary level. We're at about 30. Beastie has to go to that forward mine. That pit mine just ran out. It looks like it's at 0 currently. Saharan Trade Network trying to help him out, trying to create a little damage. I'm not seeing any poison on those arrows. It's making them need to back up. FeAge is trying to get some sort of reinforcements here, trying to get a south flank on that archer mass. There is just too much military over here to the point where those knights from Elyona and those archers are just able to sit under the town center, and it just doesn't matter. It's so much idle time from Beastie. Elyona trying to get that charge in once again, trying to preserve that archer count from MarineLorD. Spearmen are going to be able to get a brace on FeAge's knights. That's a couple, 2 or 3 knights that end up going down. Again, even with those veteran archers, they can do a little bit better against Royal Knights. That poison arrow just came in. Begs the question, though, Lidakor, are there enough archers to actually hold here?
It's a tricky thing. They will clean up the knights, but now it's archer v archer. And the poison arrows shine when you're up against heavily armored targets. Against low HP units that have large quantities, they won't be as effective. It's still veteran archers against archers, though. And I think the key thing here is that MarineLorD's entire army isn't here. This is about half of what he has, and it is going to get cleaned up thanks to those knights. They managed to stall this push out until poison arrows kicked in for Beastie. And MarineLorD and Elyona had the perfect timing here. They did dive just before Beastie has gotten that upgrade. Problem is that they weren't able to do enough damage, partly because, you see, Beastie is having an access to a gold mine here on the right flank that's well protected by those walls, and that's probably what saves the game for him. He was cut off from the gold inside his base. If he didn't have a backup, he would have struggled to continue producing archers, or even get the poison arrows tech.
Oh yeah, that poison arrows tech is definitely expensive, along with all of those upgrades that he needs. He did a good job walling off over there on the eastern side. Now MarineLorD with a little bit of force over here of predominantly archers, trying to get some villagers out of FeAge, maybe trying to get either some kills or some idle time. Didn't prove to be that successful just because there wasn't that much of a front line. There was only maybe one spearman that was all the way in the back, but Elyona doing a little bit better in the raiding department. There's a couple villagers that end up going down. Look at all the villagers that are idle around. There's only 15 different doors that town center can get through. Once all those doors are open, you can't let any more in. They're just standing by that town center, and a couple of them end up going down in the process. The crazy thing to me, though, Lidakor, as we're watching some of these archers with those poison coming out with those Royal Knights, it looks like there's only 3 or 4 here. Not going to be helpful. Again, this is a quality issue. Veteran archers with the poison, they're going to be able to take down those archers very quickly, whether it's armor or otherwise. It seems like they are just shredding through them. MarineLorD and Elyona have to back up. Beastie doing the strategy of just diverting attention over to a Wololo, which makes for a very good distraction technique. Vodka gets tripped up by it every single time as we see it there. But as Lidakor, my question to you as MarineLorD and Elyona have to back up is, it's kind of crazy how MarineLorD and Elyona were the aggressors in this fight, and throughout the majority of this game, this is the first time that they have to back up. The economic count is surprisingly similar.
Not a lot of villagers were killed, right? You look at that dive from Elyona and MarineLorD, they didn't really kill a lot of vills, and that's part of the reason why Beastie and FeAge are very much in this game. And even though they are down by about 10 eco for quite a while, the fights that they are taking are so much more effective, mainly because they do have the tools to destroy knights with. That's not available for MarineLorD. You see, Janissaries were actually popped out over here. They needed something that destroys those knights. Look for Beastie trying to focus down those Janissaries ASAP. They know how dangerous those are against the cavalry of FeAge, and Beastie will try his best to focus down those Janissaries as early as possible.
And just as you were saying that, he was doing that so well. It looks like there's only 4 Janissaries left. Half of them get taken out, which is really nice when you're seeing this group of archers and Janissaries. It might be a little difficult for some people. You might not be able to see them, but Janissaries, they're the only ones that have guns out here. You know, they're pretty easy to spot out. Beastie doing a good job with the micro that we know he has such a big prowess of, being able to take down some of those Janissaries. If you take a look now with these archers, I don't know. MarineLorD has to back up just because of those feudal archers. They don't have poison in their arrows. He doesn't have the age advantage. military count now swinging in favor of Beastie and FeAge, and it looks like they're going to stand and try to take this fight once again. A lot of those poisoned archers, you can see how he's splitting the attention of both of them on the western side of Beastie, trying to take down some of those knights and doing a good job of that. On the eastern side, trying to take down some archers at the same time. Hopefully he's able to target down Janissaries, but the front line of FeAge wins because of those poisoned arrows, and they do get a charge on some of those archers. The archers from MarineLorD have to divert their attention to the Royal Knights instead of the veteran archers of Beastie, the ones that are actually doing damage. It seems like every fight that they stand and take, they keep having to retreat after it.
I feel like when you look at how valuable certain technologies are, the top of the list has to be given to poison arrows. It turns Malian archers into an all-purpose unit, something that does well against his counterparts, the archers, and something that is capable of melting all those heavily armored knights. Granted, those are Feudal Age knights only against Castle Age units, but still, the key difference maker, and that has been the case for the last 15 minutes now almost, well maybe not 15 minutes, but 10 minutes let's say, the key difference maker is that you have a tool in Beastie's hand that's capable of destroying those knights, but that's not so much the case on the other side.
Yeah, and we're seeing that time and time again. Now, both archer masses, MarineLorD did a good job of spotting out where those veteran archers are. There's not many knights from FeAge right now. It looks like there's only 4 knights and a horseman trying to provide a front line. Those veteran archers from the Malians over there on the western side have to make sure they target those knights out, and you're absolutely right. They're so destructive to those Feudal Age Royal Knights that the French has to offer. But I think this is the first time where the quantity might win over the quality. Those archers don't really have any place to go. There's a wall over there on the north side. I would say any archers that he ends up taking from MarineLorD is catastrophic for him, because he needs the quantity in order to actually stand a chance in some of these 2v2 fights. And Lidakor, take a look at how many archers went down on either side with a raid by FeAge as well. Over here on the eastern side, a couple of villagers end up going down. Spearmen and archers, instead of being in that fight, instead of trying to get their forces together, have to stop these raids from happening. And there's a big, big caveat that we have not said on the northern side of this map. Beastie is the one who is starting with trade because they have the map control to do so.
As you mentioned, Beastie got cleaned up over there, but that was deceiving. Beastie was more than happy trading that army, because behind this he's building up trade, he's building up a cattle-based economy. As you said, FeAge was also raiding a lot over here. Army numbers now looking better for MarineLorD's team, but they are still both in Feudal Age. Beastie's team now has all 3 sacred sites, which is not something that you commonly see on this map. And when it comes to the knight numbers, as Wodka is showing us, probably for the first time in this game, FeAge does have the lead.
Yeah, and it's a pretty commanding lead, too. At 20-10, it looks like MarineLorD tried to get a little bit higher on the spearman count, because you're right, he needed something to try to divert FeAge's knights. He can't just take fights into knights head on, and it looks like those spearmen are actually doing a decent job in order to do that. FeAge's knights have to back up a little bit. It looks like he has a total of 9 in this battle. He's getting forced into this corner again, Beastie is, and those units from FeAge and Beastie actually end up going their separate ways. The knights from Elyona on the south side look like they were trying to get where FeAge's Royal Knights are, because they know the raiding potential of those knights. That are the only thing with the mobility. We're seeing this again, Lidakor, with that archer mass getting taken down. I don't know how many times does this have to happen before any kind of advantage can take place? Because MarineLorD and Elyona, they have a very, very high military count right now. You can tell MarineLorD is going all in feudal. I don't know if they can actually, with the amount of quality that those neutral archers have, those feudal archers have, if they can actually push, or are they just going to be playing defensive forever?
Keep coming up on the right flank. This will be denied from Beastie, and to answer your question, I think a lot comes down to when MarineLorD gets to Castle Age. He's got 85 archers. If he gets the Castle Age decks for them, they'll be more than competitive. But they are right now just occupied with pursuing all these Lancers that are roaming circles around the eco of MarineLorD and Elyona. You see now the Poison Arrow Archers once again push up, the keep will be secured. And if you look at the 85 archers that MarineLorD has, you don't see them because they are just in small groups pursuing knights.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, the 84 is a big number, but if they're not together in a group, they're probably not going to be able to do too much. There's another group with some spearmen. Spearmen aren't going to help very much in this particular battle, but MarineLorD knows that if this keep goes up, it could be quite the issue for him. There's a lot of spearmen trying to chase FeAge's knights all the way around, and it looks like these knights are just being more of a distraction tactic for the spearmen. They're not getting in head on. Finally gets that charge over there on the south side. Elyona's knights were pretty far back, and it looks like they were not being able to create a front line. This distraction technique was perfect by FeAge. The amount of micro that he needed to pull his knights all the way around in a circle like that on this battle means that keep goes up, that sacred timer keeps ticking.
Indeed, nice little counterattack here by MarineLorD and Elyona. They need to decap a sacred site because it's already 6 minutes 30 seconds, but it's going to be difficult to accomplish when the Fort of the Huntress is already coming in for Beastie. FeAge is up in Castle Age, Beastie is going into Imperial, and MarineLorD and Elyona are still both stuck in Feudal.
Yeah, and it feels like just based on MarineLorD's population right now, he does have a lot of archers, obviously. He has 80-some archers. His population's at about 180. I feel like MarineLorD gets the problem where he's perpetually going to keep making units because he feels like if he doesn't make units, he's going to end up losing. So it's going to be difficult for him to get up to Castle Age, and especially with a lot of the raiding techniques that Beastie and FeAge is doing. This is obviously not the entire 65 archer mass that Beastie has, but being able to section a little bit off, making sure that MarineLorD is idling some villagers, keeping his military back home, and making sure he's not capping sacred sites. We say it time and time again, Lidakor, and this has been a theme of today. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense.
And despite MarineLorD having almost 100 archers, you just don't see it. As you can see here, they are just getting cleaned up by much more upgraded archers that are coming out of Beastie. Lancers as well supporting here from FeAge. And MarineLorD, he's just now going up to Castle Age. It's once again too little too late. Just when he would catch up in terms of tech to the archers of Beastie, Beastie gets into Imperial, and once again MarineLorD's archers will be inferior compared to what Beastie has.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just the archers being inferior, it's some of these knights being inferior as well. It looks like Elyona and MarineLorD are finally starting to bring their forces together. It looks like they're trying to take it to FeAge, but they have such an immediate danger back home. A lot of his villagers end up getting raided. MIA does end up getting, well, I want to say partially denied, but the only reason why is because there was a surrender from MarineLorD and Elyona. This is a quick 2-0 for Beastie and FeAge.
What a game. And it started with that crazy hold against MarineLorD and Elyona. Beastie played a dangerous game going into Castle Age against a full aggro play from MarineLorD and Elyona. But they stalled out the push, they had the archers with the poison arrows tech, started taking some very advantageous fights, and Beastie turned that into some trade. We didn't really have a lot of time to talk about that, but he did have a lot of functional trade that pushes him to Imperial, that allows him to just mass produce those archers, and the way that they have turned that defense into a counterattack, into a trade, just allowed them to get to Imperial and always have the upper hand when it comes to unit quality.
Yeah, that unit quality really showed, didn't it? Especially just in every single battle. And it seemed like the amount of damage that MarineLorD and Elyona tried to make in Feudal Age with their military count being higher, just like you called in the middle of the game, it just wasn't enough. So MarineLorD and Elyona, they're on the back foot on the losing end of a 2-0 deficit. It's match point for Beastie and FeAge. They might be able to get a 3-0 into the grand finals. We'll have to find out on Cauldron.
We are jumping into game number 3 here. It is the Chinese and the Malians for MarineLorD and Elyona, and Beastie and FeAge will have the Delhi and the English. It is match point for Beastie and FeAge. They're one game away from getting into the grand finals, which is also played today. So by the time You are seeing this here on the screen. They are done playing. We are watching recorded games so that both teams have sufficient time to prepare. We're heading into game number 3 here. It is MarineLorD and Elyona. Right now the score is flipped, so don't get deceived, folks. It is Beastie and FeAge with the 2-0 lead, as they will be in command of the Delhi and the English, facing off against Elyona and MarineLorD, who have the Malians and the Chinese.
Yeah, we saw the Malians in the last series that we watched with Puppy Paw and Lash, and how disastrous the transport ships can be for your opponent. It looks like Elyona is trying to get a similar route. And I'm thinking, even though these were played at the same time, maybe Elyona learned a little bit from how to actually put a dock up here from the Malians, because he puts 3 villagers up here, and it means that dock is going to come up super, super quick. And not only is it going to go quick, Lidakor, but he's going to have some ammo in that transport ship if he wants to garrison them.
That's a big difference maker indeed between the two teams. You have that Malian transport ship that will make it difficult for the opponents to get anything going on this pond. Now, it looks like Elyona is just going to get the dock up over here, but we do have a red dot to the south as well. Beastie has a dock coming up too. He has fishing ships that can fire arrows, but they will struggle against a transport ship that does have units garrisoned inside. So this is one of those matchups where, on paper, Beastie can win with crazy micro, but if Elyona plays aggressive here, Beastie should have a tough time.
Yeah, and I think micro is a really good point, and that's really what it's going to come down to. We saw that in one of the last series with Louis MT having the micro to actually keep his team in the game for just a couple minutes longer. We'll see if Beastie can do the same thing, and I definitely would not put it past him. Now, Elyona with his first dock, the first thing that he decides to make are fishing boats instead of a transport ship, and Beastie obviously going to have those fishing boats as well. The difference is, just like you alluded to, Beastie is going to be able to have a little bit of damage potential out of those fishing ships. So if you're Beastie in this situation, what do you think the best strategy is to try to combat a Malian transport?
I wish I had an answer to that, but I really don't.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's
right?
A tough one.
It's like my first answer was, well, just don't go to the pond. But on paper, your fishing ships fire arrows as well. Technically, you can do damage to the transport ship, and you can micro your own fishing boats back to the dock. You can also repair each other with your fishing ships. So technically, there is a world in which he can beat the transport, but your damage output isn't massive, and it's a very delicate micro. So this is one of those cases where if he has an 11 out of 10 micro, he can beat that. Otherwise, it's a matter of, okay, just let's get the most out of that fishing eco before that transport ship shows up, which, by the way, didn't. So Beastie is more than happy just chilling over there fishing, despite Elyona having the option to play into the transport ship and harass him.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that we didn't see that happening a little bit earlier, but I think now dealing with a Malian transport, whether it exists or otherwise, I feel like it really relies on your teammate, and you're seeing teammates starting to make moves, the ones that aren't particularly naval. MarineLorD going to be putting that Barbican of the Sun right in the face of that cauldron right next to the Witch's Brew in that cauldron, while as FeAge on the other side, on the southwestern side, he knows that one of the best things to do to help his teammate get some kind of naval, some kind of food economy is to get military units of his own. So he's going to be able to get the council hall and get some longbowmen out here. And now Beastie is trying to get this Barbican to stop coming up, but we know China way too well at this point. Even though there's a couple villagers only here, there's about 4. That Barbican's going to go up whether you like it or not.
And it looks like MarineLorD will also use that opportunity to do some hunting over there right next to the Barbican. First the Feudal will be FeAge though. He can start pumping out some longbows. And as much as he cannot deny the Barbican, he could harass these hunters. He could possibly even harass the fishing boats. And from now on, until you have a couple of meaningful combat ships, it's going to be difficult for MarineLorD's team to secure that pond. Especially because most of the combat ships are actually outranged by longbows. So with careful micro, FeAge can pick off combat ships even from the shoreline without having his crossbows picked apart by the arrow ships.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It just goes to show the power of those longbowmen, and because of the fact that you have the council hall, you're going to be able to produce them very, very quickly. And the first couple longbowmen are going to be starting to move their way north. And if you're taking a look at that Chinese base from MarineLorD, which it looks like where those longbowmen are going to go, there are some raidable areas. There's that South Gold Mine that might be right for the taking, and MarineLorD knows that. The game knowledge that he has is impeccable. He realizes that that is an area that could get hit by longbowmen. He's already out of there by the time the longbowmen get there. What a good play.
Stable up here for MarineLorD. He can supervise the stable for extra production. You see he queued up 4 horsemen immediately. Now cancel 2, but with the supervision, he can easily catch up in numbers, and he sees an opportunity to intercept some of these exposed longbows. FeAge didn't add a single spearman to support these, and he also doesn't have crazy longbow numbers. So this is an easy pickup over there for MarineLorD. And also, on the pond, now we have a transport ship from Elyona, so Beast's fishing eco is starting to get picked apart.
Yeah, I mean, with those longbowmen getting picked, the fishing eco getting picked, it's going to be a difficult situation now. Beastie is adding some archer ships of his own, and it looks like that's a Malian hunting canoe that is trying to take down some of the arrow ships for the Delhi Sultanate. And what's really interesting, just because of this pond being so small, is you could stay in that defensive dock area, so you do get a little bit of that passive bonus along with those fishing boats that are going to be helping Elyona with that hunting canoe and building that up just a little bit. But because of those defensive structures, it makes it so difficult for you to actually do some damage. MarineLorD actually finding some damage, however, going to be able to take down that villager from FeAge, making sure that no defensive outposts, no areas there end up getting shored up. So Beastie's dock still remains very, very vulnerable. And you got to think, Lidakor, if you're MarineLorD and Elyona, that has to be your plan of attack.
Here comes the Bugla from Beastie. He is going to have that combat ship out there. Demo ship moving in here, but gets picked off immediately. And now Beastie, with the power of the Bugla, starts securing that pond. Army numbers are heavily favoring Beastie's team, but you need to be careful when it comes to evaluating those numbers. That includes the combat ships too. So when you look at the land, we are realistically looking at 2 sofas soon and 3 horsemen against some longbows and Ghazi raiders. I'm starting to like this a lot more for Beastie's team. They seem to have the dominance on land now as well when it comes to army.
Yeah, it's quite interesting just because of the longbowman mass that is there. There's 11 total, to the point where MarineLorD, he does have some horsemen there, which are the counter, but still has to retreat just because of the amount of longbowmen that are really there. And obviously with that council hall getting produced, it's only going to get bigger and bigger. That outpost being very important for FeAge. He's going to send another villager up there to try to get that built. We all talk about how important network of castles are when you're playing as the English, and that outpost could really save him and make sure that that dock stays up and get that fishing economy. Now, what do you think about Beastie's army composition? Because he's going with the Ghazi Raiders with the longbowmen. They're such a good complement, aren't they?
I like it a lot, given that you have sofas against you. Against those initial sofas, they will be valuable. And there is also a big ball of Chukanu coming out. This combination, I think, works very well for him. And don't forget, he went up with the Dome of Faith, so for him, playing into archers is not so much of a motivation, or not so much of a thing. Demo now coming out here. Could get a connection in the corner over here, nothing to snipe it down with, and that's a lovely connection. Elyona losing 2 ships for the demo of Beastie.
Oof, that is quite an expensive ship that ends up going down. Now, those fishing boats, they really are do-it-all. They're able to repair, they're able to get some arrow ships, but a demo canoe from Elyona looks like it's trying to find its way south, looking for a way to detonate, tries to find that Bogla, and will get a good hit on that thing. It looks like it's at about 10% health, but because of that fishing boat, because of the dock, because of the longbowmen that are helping out Beastie, that Bogla, even though it got hit square by a demo ship, Lidakor, it's still up.
Just keeping a single combat ship alive on that pond is so meaningful. Just establishing your presence, and now we have the longbows moving in, focusing down the ships as well. Another demo connects in army numbers. heavily in the favor of Beastie's team now. Most of that is on the land now. Basically no ships remaining. They have 26 longbows and 9 Ghazi Raiders against just 10 Chukanu and a handful of cavalry. This is looking better and better for them. And you see now the Ghazi Raiders are even moving in, getting some torches thrown towards those houses. I'm especially worried for Elyona. He's sitting at 5 sofas only. And these guys aren't the Castle Age sofas. They do not have imported armor yet. They are going to fall to mass longbows, and that's exactly what FeAge is accomplishing. He is picking off those individual sofas that are raiding him, and this just leaves with basically no functional army for Elyona.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, the functional army, I think he attempted to spend a lot of his resources on the water, but that didn't prove to be successful, even with the Barbican of the Sun helping him out. You talked about the sofas. There's only about 3 or 4. You could see how quickly they're going down by not only the Ghazi Raiders with that extra increase in damage, but those longbowmen, just because they don't have a lot of ranged armor in the first place. So those longbowmen are going to do a good job of picking them apart. And it looks like those Chugnu are out of place. There's too many Ghazi Raiders here. That is a full surround. That's dead Zuknu, and those Ghazi Raiders can turn around and take those sofas out, but the furniture is going to end up staying alive because MarineLorD and Elyona decide to tap out of this one. We got a 3-0 on our hands.
What a series this was, and what a display of the Season 5 new unit, the Ghazi Raiders. We've talked about this unit a lot, and when you have that extra bonus damage against heavily armored units, plus you are still a light cav unit that does bonus against those lightly armored targets, the Chukanu, you have an all-in-one unit in the hands of Beastie, and he was able to punish everything that MarineLorD had on the field. So did Elyona.